This is a demonstration of a new settings framework I've been working on for the node. And the reason for this was to be able to move away from having to configure properties files and other things when deploying new nodes, and to let the components that are deployed with the node sort of describe for themselves what is configurable with that component, and then provide a centralized UI in the node to allow configuring those components and changing them dynamically at runtime. So I took some inspiration from iOS actually with the settings app, because when you write an iOS app, you can, through configuration only, describe settings that are available in that app that will show up in the global settings app provided by Apple. So I took some inspiration from there and implemented a similar framework for the node bundles. And so what you're seeing here is the very basic, very rough user interface I've been working on that shows the configurable aspects that the bundles themselves are publishing. So this user interface that you see with this form and the things that are showing up in the form is completely dynamic and sort of controlled by whatever I have deployed on this node. So I happen to have deployed here the bundle to support the LOTA switch. You can see at the front here, the top here, which requires a serial port. So the serial port configuration is showing up. And I've also deployed the Solar inverter bundle, so configuration for that shows up as well. Now down here, all these other things are all the jobs that get scheduled and implemented on the node then become configurable in terms of the schedule that they run at. So every job that's registered will automatically show up here so that you can configure when it runs. So we're seeing things, I have the weather support deployed, price capturing, this element here called mock power generation is sort of a fake version of an inverter, a PV inverter, and this is just to show that some possibility over what kind of settings we can do. So one of the settings is a slider. In this case, it's just to give you the UI, a nice slider component, and this is just a toggle for turning something on and off. Again, some of these inspired by iOS as well. And you can see here when I change this setting, this box is turning red just to show you that you've changed that value. I'm not automatically applying those changes in this UI anyway. I have to come down here and click the save button afterwards after I change anything. But first, I'm going to come up here and let's get the LOTA switch and everything else working. So first thing we need is to configure serial port. For a lot of the components you deploy with a node, you can have as many of them deployed at the same time as you like. And OSGI supports this very nicely in terms of configuration. So with a serial port, you actually have to be able to configure more than one. So what's happening in this UI, it's taking you to a special screen just to manage that serial port configuration. So you can add as many as you want. I'll add one here. Now for each serial port, actually all I can configure is the path to the port, the device. I'm just going to keep this default that it's providing here. So there, I've just enabled a serial port on the node, and all the other components will be able to use that now. Let's get the LOTA switch talking and using that serial port. Here again, the idea is you can have as many LOTA switches connected to the node as you'd like. So the LOTA switch actually has, since you're using serial port, comes with a lot of stuff that you can configure. Most of it is low-level serial port stuff. So instead of putting all this in the property file now, you can just configure it here. These little things at the end is a way for providing descriptions for every configurable component. So there's some support for helping people understand what all these mean. And all the text you're seeing here is actually localizable, so it's can be translated into other languages if we wanted. I'm just going to stick with all the defaults, except I'm going to change the serial port because I know I just configured it to be, I think it was USB 1. I'm going to change it to USB 1. You can see that went red, meaning it has changed but not saved. I'm just going to leave on all the other defaults as is. Save those settings. Great. They've been saved. I'll come back here. So now the LADA switch will start, will be active immediately now that I've configured it. Let's go ahead and I can now configure the Solar inverter settings. Oh no! Here we go. Not sure why I've got 2 there, but now I can show deleting it maybe. Going to, I actually clicked that button twice. So I'm going to delete the second one. I don't need that second configuration anymore. We've got one inverter I want to talk to. Here, I can just plug in the URL to the inverter. Give it a source ID. If you've got more than one, like in Tau, you'd have 5, so you'd configure 5 of these and give each one a unique ID. I'll just call this one main because we're only going to have one. So save that. And we're done. So in the background, you can't see it in the screen, but the node is running all those configured components now and attempting to talk to those devices, and I didn't have to change any properties files. So there's a long way to go in terms of making the UI sort of more usable, look nicer, and implement support for more controls and better validation in the control values. But it's a very good start.